Good morning. My name is Ira, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about the autism voice. So, what are my credentials? Pretty easy. I have autism. So, moving forward, if you, let's see how to phrase this. Chances are you know what the autism voice is. You understand what I'm talking about. Like, there's a specific way that autistic people tend to speak. Like, there's certain ways that I don't even know how to describe it. Okay, I know some of how to describe it, but like, I was at the pool maybe a month ago, and there's this boy, maybe 8 or 9, and the instant he started talking, I was able to recognize that he had autism. And then just watching him for a few more seconds, there were other signs that, yeah, this kid has autism. So, voice is one thing that is a strong clue, a key identifier. It's something that's pretty easy to pick up on, to be able to recognize that someone does indeed have autism. And, well, it's something that excuse me, it's something that I have not exactly worked past, but it's not as distinct for the most part. And so I just want to share a little bit about what I did so that maybe some of you all can do it better than I can. Anyways, I'm of the opinion that even if I don't have the best or the most complete information, no, that's not the right word, best ideas, I can just give you ideas so that you can do better than I can. So, anyways, let's start off with what's so identifiable about the autism voice. Well, it's kind of hard to put into real words because it's just something that I notice very easily. Kind of living with it, I can pick up on some of those things. But, like, people with autism, when they speak, there's a handful of things that sort of are recurring themes. For example, there isn't much change in pitch, not much variation in pitch. So it's like when they talk, it's pretty monotone. It's pretty monotone. There's not much variation, no highs or lows. It's like they're just speaking the words, which to an autistic mind, it makes sense. The information you're conveying, you're trying to convey, it's just the words, just that simple data. Emotion information, anything below or beyond that, that's not why you're talking. That's not what you're trying to convey. So it takes effort to try and build those into speech. Another thing is sometimes there's like really sudden changes in pitch. Like you're speaking, then suddenly it goes way up or way down, and like it sounds unnatural to most people. Just different and unnatural. It doesn't flow very well. Let's see, another thing is, I guess it sort of goes with the first two, but like a lot of the time when autistic people speak, there's this weird breathiness or like a tanginess. Like, simply because the way that we form words is different, and we don't really have that what's the term? When you hear yourself and then adjust accordingly, that doesn't work very well for a lot of us. So, yeah, often our voices just convey the information, the words themselves, and that's it. We don't try, or often we don't even recognize that there is more to be conveyed. And then, like, there's not much emotional expression. Let me give you an example. So, years ago, I was hanging out with a friend and they mentioned that their dog had died, like the day before. And for a normal human being, a normal neurotypical person that doesn't have neurospicy, that's code for, oh, you have to start putting emotion into your voice and just show how much you care and sympathize. Yeah, that didn't happen for me. That didn't click. That didn't really exist in my little world. So I just said, oh, that's so sad. I'm sorry to hear that. Because, that's what you're supposed to say. But there wasn't any emotion to it. Like, it was just flat, monotone, just like always. But the problem is, it's fine when you're speaking with autistic people, or if you're having some sort of a conversation where emotion is just not a part of it. However, unfortunately, emotionality is like a thing for neurotypical people, and it's just like how they speak. So, we have a couple of options. One, adjust the way we speak and convey things over vocal speech patterns, or they just adapt. Ideally, the latter would be pretty nice. The ones that, don't have... Anyways, I don't need to talk more about that one. It would just be easier if neurotypical people just accepted that autistic individuals or neurospicy extra individuals just are different. Derp. Anyways, that gives us two options. Either we don't change or we do change. Me personally, I work pretty hard to be able to fit in. It's pretty important to me, personally. So I have decided to try and adjust the way that I speak to be able to match normal human patterns. So here's a bit of what I did. And yeah, anyways, so all growing up, junior high, the first bit of high school, I spoke just like any other typically autistic person. With those same no emotionality, emotion didn't exist in my voice, pretty monotone. I don't think my pitch was too bad, too off, but it was a bit lower than it probably should have been, so that was a thing. Yeah. However, the first big change happened when I was in high school. I was part of a club where, as an aspect of it, we had to give speeches. Now, there were two different types of speech. There was prepared and impromptu. The prepared speech, we had to have some random topic. It could be whatever we wanted to speak about. Some topic, and we had to speak for 3 minutes on it. Prepared speech, so the things are well written. They're prepared beforehand. We practice them a lot, and we just give them. We have these speeches that we prepare, and we have to give them the very best. We're graded on these things, so we practice. We practice how to give speeches. So let me introduce you to the speech voice. A thing in speech is that emotionality, variations in pitch, emphasis on certain words, they're completely change how a speech is given. It's not about the words you say, it's about the way you say them. And that's a very important lesson that applies to a lot of things. But it's not about the words you say, it's about the way that you say them. Having variation in your pitch, the way you speak, emphasizing words, completely changes the speech. So, you can have two speeches using the exact same words. One will be graded highly. One will be graded poorly, simply because of the presentation. The same principle applies in job interviews, or most instances when you're speaking with people. Often, the words you say carry less weight than the way that you say them. In that club, I started to learn that. My parents, for years, they would say, "Hey, don't forget to use your speech voice," whenever I would be like talking to someone or in some sort of a situation where I'm speaking to people. Like, it was kind of annoying, but it was a good reminder. A reminder to have those variations in pitch, emphasizing certain words, add emotionality to your voice. None of these came naturally to me. Or to a lot of autistic people a lot like me. Like, it just doesn't come naturally. It doesn't come with a voice. You're taught how to speak in school, but you're just sort of expected to be able to speak well after that, which doesn't happen. So I've had to try and force a lot of these things into my voice. Similar to how I speak with my hands a lot more, because speaking with my hands conveys ideas that my voice and words aren't quite able to. It's not so much about what you say, but how you say it. So in that club, I started to understand what that really meant. And I began to sort of develop this. It was a secondary way of speaking, a way that sounded more human, more normal, more like all those lucky sods who are neurotypical and don't have to deal with... Anyways, so a second way of speaking that aligned more with normal human behavior. Let's fast forward a little bit. This is where my own particular journey changes a tad bit from the typical. And by the typical, I mean like the atypical, typical. The typical atypical. Anyways, so, in case you were wondering, I'm trans. Yeah, nice to meet you. But part of that is I really didn't like the sound of my voice. Like, really, I did not like it at all. And I've put quite a decent little bit of effort into trying to change it. Okay, let me back up a little bit. I did some research into the differences between male and female voices. Females tend to have more variation in pitch, more emphasis on certain words, different ways of speaking. So I tried to emulate a lot of that. I tried to change the way I'm speaking, the way I speak, on a deeper level, not just having this secondary way of speaking, this speech voice that I can just pull out when I need to, but change the way I actually speak. Not just occasionally, but all the time. So I worked on pitch fluctuations, speech patterns, a lot of these different aspects that are pretty typical for autistic voices. I worked on specifically changing those things, because a lot of them are just part of, like, women speak. So, pitch variations, that is something that is more typical for women. A weird breathiness or tanginess in your voice, well, I'll admit, I don't have all of that out, but like trying to speak with a more natural voice, exaggerated intonations, well, trying to sort of limit those and bring it to basically all of those things I've talked about. I worked on each of them, all of them, and then plus some, to try and sound more natural. For me, more like a natural feminine voice. However, the principle still applies to Autism Voice because, well, I specifically worked to change a lot of those things. So now, you can hear my voice. a lot of those pretty typical autistic traits are reduced dramatically. And those are the two main things that worked for me. One, in speech, well, in that club, to work on adding these different aspects, addressing them specifically and changing things when I need to. Like, just for a little bit. Maybe if I'm giving a speech or presenting or something, just have that secondary speech pattern that I can just pull up, go into, and speak that way. And then, once I had that, well, I eventually realized I was trans, and oh look, whoopsie daisy, tried working on my voice, so that when I typically speak, it doesn't sound like that traditionally autistic voice. I'll admit, my voice is still pretty flat a lot of the time. There aren't a whole lot of variations, but I feel like it's pretty decent. I mean, you can be the judge of that. I'm a pretty bad judge myself anyways, so, yeah. But I just wanted to share what has helped me. Just have a speech or a slogan or something that you can repeat. Just like with voice training, you're trying to train your voice to be able to have certain qualities, literally. For me, where I started with that club, I had a speech. Every year was a different speech, but it was a speech that I would give. Maybe you could recite a poem, like Invictus, or The Road Less Traveled. I love those poems, by the way. But have something that you can repeat, something that you can work on. Practice adding variations in your pitch, and emphasizing certain words. So, for example, let's see, what do I want to use as an example? Okay, I'll use Invictus. Try and pay attention to certain pitch variations, how words are emphasized, pausing. Pausing is even important. And adding emotionality. I'm gonna try this. Out in the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole. I think whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bloodstains of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horrors of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, or how charged with consequence or punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate, and I am the captain of my soul. You could choose literally whatever you want to sort of practice these different things with. Just practice the speed at which you're speaking, variations in pitch, expressions, like try all of these things. Try and record yourself, play it back. Like what you hear? Try that. Don't like what you hear? Try something different. But practice makes perfect. Better practice makes better. Yeah. Or something like that. Just when you try it long enough and try and just do it in like typical everyday normal communication, then it just becomes how you speak. It's not your speech voice, it's not your alternative way of speaking, it's just you. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed. See you. Bye.